Greetings, fam. Now, some of you, after watching this video, might think, oh, old girl got too much time on her hands. And that may be true because I do sit around and think about stuff. And one of the things I thought about is what's black and what's not. And so I'm just going to take y'all down a little road with me into some things. First, we're going to start with history and people who you did not know or you may not have known were black. Now, to you Catholics out there, did you know that St. Augustine was black? Or you could say St. Augustine. People pronounce it differently. I tend to be a phonetic pronunciator, person who pronounces things phonetically. And indeed, he was. A lot of you may also know that Alexander Hamilton, who was the first Secretary of the Treasury and whose face adorns the US $10 bill, his mother, Rachel Fawcett Levon, was said to be of mixed blood. And back then, they had something called the 10% rule that if you just even had a 10% drop of black blood in you, you were black. Alexander's older brother was a dark skinned person, and he was treated as black. And even though his mother was half black, both she and Alexander were light skinned enough to pass as white. And in this video, we're going to talk a lot about people who passed as white, even up to the present day. I remember in my generation, we used to say light, bright, and damn near white. And even in my generation, there were people who chose to pass as white because they felt that it would make their life better. And so this is what they chose to do. And in a lot of cases, it may have very well been the case because a lot of lighter skinned people were in the 60s and in the 50s, and even beyond, further back than that, were given jobs because they were thought to be white, or even if the employer knew they were black, they were light enough to not offend the clientele. And I'm talking about people who did not want to deal with black people in any form. And so if they didn't know, then that was a positive at that time because they didn't know they were dealing with someone black. Another case of someone who was black was the classical composer Mozart. No, excuse me, Beethoven. Ludwig Beethoven was black. His mother was a Moor. And for those of you who know, the Moors were Africans. And even though the paintings of him depicted him as very Caucasian, his death masks highlight his African features, and you can see the mask there at the bottom. And they made sure that it was of a brown color, and they also highlighted his, what they called at that time, Negroid features. Another person who is black, or was black, he's no longer with us, is Alexander Pushkin. He was considered the grandfather of Russian literature. He was the great grandson of an Ethiopian prince named Ibrahim Ganabal. And one of Pushkin's famous unpublished works is an unfinished work about his Ethiopian grandfather. And those of you who know, you know that Ethiopians are Africans, because I'm one. And so Pushkin was black. Few knew it, but it's a fact. The author of The Three Musketeers and The Count of Monte Cristo, Alexander Dumas, was born to a white father who was a general and a rival of Napoleon Bonaparte. And his mother was a slave. And so that during that his time, she was a black slave. And this was his heritage, and he went on to succeed in life And as I said, he wrote these two great works. Few people knew this fact, but FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover was known by his peers, but not by the public, as a black man who passed as white. And here we go back to the passing. Now, Gore Vidal, who was his childhood neighbor, wrote, "It was always said in my family and around the city that Hoover was mulatto, and that he came from a family that passed." And so this was something that was known, because usually wherever you grow up, they tend to know more of your business than when you move out of your hood and go on to do other things. And so Hoover was indeed passing as white. Now, this was interesting to me. I did not know this, but the late great comic legend Carol Channing didn't reveal to the world that her father was black until 2002. And that was when she was over 80 years old. So she held on to that for a very long time. And I can tell you, in Hollywood, during her time when she was at the top of her heyday, it was not popular to be black, because during that time, the only blacks that you saw on film were either slaves or maids or entertainers. And so I'm not saying I can relate, because I don't know what I would have done, but I'm pretty sure I would not have tried to pass. Not that I couldn't have anyway. But to hold on to this for 80 years of her life must have been something. And so she passed away this year, January, at the age of 97. But she felt that she did not want the world to know that she had a black father. And again, the 10% rule applies. Although if your father's black, you're more than 10%. So she was a mulatto. She was a mixed race, and what some people call today swirls. Here's another one I did not know about. Clark Gable. But he didn't try to hide his black and Native American heritage. And it was widely publicized. It was not widely publicized either. But when his Gone with the Wind co-star, Hattie McDaniel, who was black, she was the sister who played the maid, she was not permitted to attend the premiere in Atlanta, Georgia. He threatened to boycott it. And when he saw colored and white bathrooms on the set, he refused to continue working until all of the cast was treated equally. So he used his star power back then to be an advocate for equal rights. And this was, I'm guessing this is because of his own background, even though the Hollywood studios, they would have never ever revealed that to the public during that time, because he was also what was considered a sex symbol. And I'm sure a lot of the Southern whites especially, and the women who were in love with him, because they would get really in love with these sex symbols back then to the degree of being manic, they wouldn't have accepted him had they known he even had an inch of black in him. That would have been the end of his career probably, because that was the time of segregation and a time when blacks were not as accepted as we are today. Many of you think that Michelle Obama was the first black first lady, but if you research it, you'll find that no, she wasn't. It was Jackie Onassis, and her ancestor, John Vanzeli de Grassi, was the first black American formally educated as a doctor. Her father was nicknamed Black Jack Bouvier because of his dark complexion. Now remember, Jackie's heritage is French, and the French have a long history of intermingling with black people and with the help. And so there were a lot of children born of these pairings. And then over time, the French were also more advanced than America. So over time, they actually not only intercopulated, but they actually married into black culture and families because they felt that they didn't have to do what America does. They still don't. They still feel that way. They don't copy us. If anything, we tend to copy them. But the French tend to be very independent, and they were very, very, very liberated and nonpartisan. They just did what the hell they pleased, and if they liked someone, that's who they mated with and eventually married. And so that's Jackie's heritage, but she never let it out, and she went to the grave with it. Another case, moving up now to the present time, is the Saturday Night Live actress who is the daughter of the late soul singer Minnie Riperton. And her name is Maya Rudolph. And Minnie Riperton was married to a white man, but this daughter was the product of that marriage. And looking at her, you wouldn't know, but she is indeed black. Legendary baseball player Derek Jeter is mixed with African American and Irish. Well, me lucky charms. And everyone knows about this one, although for many years she did not reveal her parentage. Early in Mariah's career, nobody knew she was black. She didn't tell people. Later, when black started becoming popular again, then she told everybody that her father was black and her mother is white. But she never really maintained a relationship with her father. That's him to the right with her when she was young. But you do see her frequently in the company of her mother. So I don't know what that's about, but it could be the fact that maybe he was not present. A lot of times when parents are not present in the life of a child, they grow distant because they don't know you. So it might not have had anything to do with him being black. And then she did marry Nick Cannon, a black man, and so she herself has interracial children. This may come as a surprise. The rock legend Slash is half black. He's a mulatto. And that's his mama on the right with him. And, I don't know how much he publicizes that, but he does take pictures with mom, and it's out there. So he must be, I'm guessing he's pretty proud of who he is. And there's no reason not to be. I mean, you are who you are. Now, Vin Diesel, on the other hand, speaking of pride, he doesn't identify himself as black, but he has been known to say he's a person of color. There's a few of those out there that, Tiger Woods, a couple of people that they won't say it. They won't say the black word, but they'll admit to being some variation of it. So Vin, who never met his biological father, again, the absentee father, and this is why it's important to stay in your children's lives, because your child shouldn't grow up clicking on Ancestry.com to find out what the heck they are. They should know because you told them. But Vin's stepfather is black. And so I guess that has some type of influence on him nonetheless. Rashida Jones is the daughter of media mogul Quincy Jones. And that D at the end of the name, the end of her name, was a typo. It's Rashida. And she's the product of his liaison, and I believe he was married to the actress Peggy Lipton, who is white, and she was on the show Mod Squad. So that's Khadida. Now in this segment, I want to talk about black businesses that are not black owned. And the reason that I want to address this is because Black History Month is coming up. And I would like all of you within the sound of my voice to support a black business for Black History Month. Even if you don't do it for the rest of the year, at least for Black History Month. Support the brothers and sisters out there who are trying to do something positive, and they built their businesses and they need your support. We are the only culture of people who will take our money outside of the culture. We will run and buy designer labels from people who do not even know we exist or care. And we will even put on our records the names of these things and promote them. And we're not supporting our own people. So I'm saying that you can still go to the other cultures and spend money, but also support your own. Because for some of you, that is the hardest thing to do, is to support another black person. And I don't understand the concept behind it. I hear some people say, well, the quality is not the same. But there are people out there who are putting out some damn good products, but you'll never know if you don't support them. And so even in terms of charitable acts, and I won't even talk about my own ministry, but there are some people that are very charitable and will support anybody who asks. And then there are other people that even if you tell them to only send $5, they won't do it because you're black. And I've been accused of hustling people because I ask people to support the ministry. I will tell you, the biggest donation that I have received to date was $1,000 from a white person. Now, granted, this may have well been someone who could afford to send that, but there are many black people out there that could also afford to send that, but they wouldn't. If I was a person of another nationality, they may or they may not, but chances are they would send it, especially if they had it, because they would believe that this person was going to use it for the greater good. But because I'm black and because I have a history of having been in prison and different things, people always tend to paint you with the same brush. Even if you've changed and you've proven that you've moved on and you've become a better person and you're doing good now, people tend to paint you with the same brush. And so I'm going to go into this segment and show you some businesses that a lot of you support. And I'm talking to the black people now. A lot of you black people support these businesses assuming that they are black owned, and they're not. So, just because something has the name black on it doesn't mean it's black. Here we go. Essence, which was launched in May of 1970, was a black-owned magazine for black women. In 2000, Time Warner Inc. purchased 49% of Essence Communications Inc., which is the publishing company that publishes Essence. In 2005, Time Inc. agreed to buy the remaining 51% that it didn't already own, adding this African American woman's lifestyle publication to its magazine division. So those of you who think you're supporting a black magazine when you buy Essence, know that it is owned by Time Warner, who also owns cable companies and other entities as well. It's $1 billion business, and it grew through people supporting it. Business only grows when you have customers, consumers. So keep that in mind. Those of you who want to be successful, get you a product and then get you some customers. And I'm not talking about drugs. Get you a legitimate product and then market. Some of you are good at marketing on the internet. You've got 1 million YouTube subscribers. You've got people following you everywhere. Turn that into your customer base and you will see the success. And then you can hire other people who need money and teach them how you got there. Okay, The Root. Now, while and this is actually, I'm combining it. The Root griot and black voices. Now, while the concept for the griot was presented by two black men, David A. Wilson and Barton L. Grant, the property itself is owned by NBC News. Bet you didn't know that. Educator, writer, and author Henry Louis Gates Jr. helped create the route. However, it is owned by the Washington Post Company through its online subsidiary, the CIST Group. Black Voices was originally founded by African American entrepreneur Barry Cooper, but was later sold to AOL, which is a subsidiary of Time Warner. So, again, these are black named companies, and they are associated with black culture, but they are not owned by black people. And in a lot of cases, they were sold for money, much like in slave times, the African people sold their brothers and sisters to the slave traders for trinkets and other items of monetary value. David Mays and Sire Schechter were two Jewish guys who started Source magazine, which is a top hip hop magazine, and that's them to the left at the bottom. But if you go up to the top, to the right, David Mays also started and owns Hip Hop Weekly, which is another successful and popular hip hop magazine. So a lot of these hip hop magazines that have all, they hire black writers, they hire their marketing and research team are usually comprised of people who have knowledge about hip hop and the magazine. And so they are able to promote it to the audience that they know will give them their money. And I'm not knocking David. Do you? Just like you have here in Manhattan, I don't know about, well, in New York, period. I don't know about other states, but we have these soul food salad bars, which were started by Asians. And you've got, there's one Asian guy, Mr. Lee, he owns about 5 of them. And they make money. They get G money every single day because the black consumer will go in there and buy this food, which is good. I can't even front. The food is good. It's fattening, but it's good. And the few times that I had a chance to look in the back in the kitchen, it was my African brothers who were cooking the food. And I always say to myself, why couldn't they have thought of the idea to open the restaurant? But some people don't have the foresight to see success. And then other people just don't have good money management skills. So even if they saw the success ahead of time, they didn't have the money to back it up. And because of that, they couldn't even get investors, because it's hard when you're broke to get people to believe in you. I know. When you're broke and you try to approach people for money, they always wonder, well, why should I invest in you? You don't have any money. And how do I know, and so then comes all the questions. They want to know, well, how do I know I won't lose my money? How do I know that you're going to do what you say you're going to do with it? And so on and so forth. So as a result, other people come in and swoop with the idea that was great and become millionaires, multimillionaires off something that is traditionally black. Okay, King and XXL, two other popular black magazines, and King in particular is at the top of the line in terms of the exploitation of black women. And I know it's targeted as a black man's magazine, but really though, black men, do you need to look at scantily dressed women in a book? Women that you'll probably never have, and women who you may have at home already. So you don't need to have your face in a magazine. And these magazines are not cheap, but yet and still they are made successful by the black community who support these things and have made this man, Stanley R. Harris, quite successful. He's the man that owns both XXL Magazine and King. And that's him at the top there. And his company is called Harris Publications. Surprise, surprise. But you know, he has no regrets because he's sitting pretty. And again, I'm sure there's enough black people on staff to keep it 100. But I hate King for exactly what it does. As you can see Kim on the cover there, these are not the images that we need to be promoting to our youth, that we need to have young girls thinking that this is something to aspire to be. I met a girl who was a model and her goal was to be on the cover of King. Really, sister? Okay, so Plantation Tunes, I'm talking about Slave Plantation. It's back. It never really left. Because you've got, and I'm not knocking the Jews, but you've got 99% of the people who own the things that are exploited to us. They own the plantation. And these magazines, the black rappers and the entertainers, they work for them by shucking and jiving and making us look bad. And this is why a lot of people do not want to be associated with blacks, because we are considered ignorant, we are considered and unable to manage money. And in a lot of cases, that part is true. The ignorant part is true too, but a lot more of us are getting smart. And we're considered a risk, and we're considered criminals, even if we've left the criminal lifestyle. Once they know you come from that lifestyle, it'll always be a blot on your resume. There are companies who won't even hire ex-offenders. So what do we do? Because we can't change who we are. Our skin tells them the minute we walk through the door who we are, unless we're like some of our other brothers and sisters who can pass, and not much of that is being done these days. So pretty much, because people can find out. So pretty much you are who you are. So what do? Well, you get an education, for starters. And you get a plan, a game plan. So many of you want to be in the game, but you don't know how to play the game. What I tell people is don't aspire to be a player in the game. Aspire to be the coach. Because the coach has got to know everything. Because he's coaching the players. So you want to aspire to being at the top of the game, not just in the game, because everybody's in the game. If you got a job, wherever you work, you're in the game. You get up, the alarm goes off, you wash, you go to work. I don't care if it's McDonald's. That's the game you're in until you step it up. You know, change your mind, change your mindset, change your thinking, people. Think, and this is very cliche, but think outside of the box. Whether the box you're in is the housing projects, whether the box you're in is the homeless shelter, whether the box you're in is even on the street. Think outside of that box, because you're only there as long as you let yourself stay there. Take whatever steps you need to get to the next level in the game, because it's only through getting and stepping up your game that you get to the top of it. You don't get to it by just staying stuck in one place. Some of you are stuck, and I've said that in other videos. So how do you get a black-owned business? Ask other black business owners. Hey, how'd you get your start? Try to get on at a place. And that's the other thing too. Swallow some of that pride. We are very proud people to the point where it can be detrimental, because it's very hard to get someone who's made it to take and invest the time in teaching you how to make it. So if you come at them with too much swagger and too much attitude, right away it's a turnoff, because half of what they're investing time in is getting you to be humble enough to be able to take direction. There are people out there, some of you think you know everything. So you're not going to learn nothing because you already know it, or so you think. And then some of you are so prideful that you don't even want to ask people for help or direction because you've got too much pride. Oh, I don't need them. But you do. If you're calling people up and asking them for money, then you need to swallow some of your pride and ask them how you can get you some money. That should be the question. Hey, you know anything I could do today to get myself some money? They may even have something for you to do. But if you're too proud, but some of you ain't, there used to be a song back in the day by the Temptations, Ain't Too Proud to Beg. And he wasn't talking about this, but the title applies. Some of you ain't too proud to call and beg, but you're too proud to try to find out how you can step up your game. That's getting it twisted. That's why you got to get your mind right. Once you get your mind right, you get your money right. And again, like I said, support black businesses. Doesn't mean you can't support the other ones, but support black businesses. Because you each one teach one. By you supporting that black business, you're helping someone to get to the top of their game. And people at the top of their game are the only people that can help you in terms of showing you how they got there. But you're never gonna get it if you don't invest the time in trying to learn. And you have to learn. You can't just try to learn. You have to learn. Because now with the government cutbacks and with our boy up there in the White House, I had a meme once and it showed all kind of odd situations and it said, have you ever looked at things and wonder how they got there? Well, old Donald is a prime example of how the hell did he get there. I told people way before he got there, don't put him in. But nobody listened. And so he's there. And you see what's going on. Tomorrow is not guaranteed. Not only do you need to be at the top of your game, but you need to also have money management skills so that if everything does crash, the government crashes, your job crashes, whatever, you've got stacks stacked up so that you and your family can live and you'll be all right. But that doesn't come from out there buying all this showy stuff just so you can show everybody that you're balling when in effect you're not. You're not balling if you've got all this finery and you still live with moms. You're not balling if you're sleeping in your car. I don't care what kind of car it is. So get our priorities straight, people. That's pretty much, what I have to say in this video. And yes, I'm a drama queen. Guilty as charged because sometimes that's the only time I can get y'all's attention. So it is what it is. Rewind this and listen to it more than once because there are a lot of points that I don't want you to miss. And I thank you. I thank you for tuning in. I thank you so much for the love and support. God bless y'all. Thank you for supporting the ministry. I'm going to pray now. Lord, I ask you in the name of the mighty Yeshua HaMashiach to bless the people, the listeners of this word. Bless the people that I've included in the video, that they are, those who are still with us, will be wise in their decisions in life, and especially the entertainers, that they will use their stature to educate and to enlighten and to help those who come behind them to make wise choices and to stop the buffoonery despite the dollar amount. There are some things that are just not worth the money. And so help them to be able to say no to certain things that they know are simply just going to drag down not only the opinion people have of them, but of the race, because many people can't differentiate between one person acting the fool and associating that with an entire race of people. So, Lord, I ask you to help people to see us, black people, as human beings who, yes, we are capable of making mistakes. Yes, we can behave foolishly. But yes, there are those of us who are educated, who want to make a difference in the world. There are those of us who seek knowledge and want to be employed and want to make a better life for ourselves and our families. So help the people to see the differences, and that in many ways we are very much alike. That in many ways there is no difference. It's only the differences that people associate us with, but they are not that different. We're not that different. We're all one children under God. You see us as one. So help the world to see us as just another human being, and help those who are still hiding behind their cultures, who don't want people to know, because of the shame associated with being black. Help them to climb out of that box and be proud and be an example. I ask these things in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen.